Hi, this is Sir Jet, and welcome to another episode of the History Lectures. Today we will transition into the American colonial period. Last time we talked about the sad part of our history wherein we lost the Phil-Am War. So beginning today, we will see the life in our country under the new colonizer, the United States of America. Now, we will have something different today because we will not be studying a written primary source, but we will be looking at caricatures. Yes, these are drawings that we can find in newspapers, and they talk about some kind of political or social issue happening in that time. So they are also very interesting sources of history. Okay, so let me first brief you what are caricatures exactly. Okay, others call them editorial cartoons. An example of a caricature, Juan de la Cruz. You often see him in newspapers, in the editorial page of newspapers. And the ed cartoons show the newspaper stand on certain political or social issues, whether they are pro or con on a certain problem that is beleaguering the nation at the time of the publication. And these cartoons uses symbolisms like maybe a giant hand, the Uncle Sam character, and the Juan de la Cruz character. Now, Uncle Sam is the personification, or he's the symbol of the United States of America, and later on you will see how he looks like. While our version of Uncle Sam is Juan de la Cruz, this guy over here. He is the typical Filipino. He wears a salakot, he's a farmer, and he's often seen as a victim of some kind of social issue or problem. So you can have other symbolisms in your ed cartoons, and later on we will see more examples in the pictures I will show you. Now, sometimes the portraits that you see on ed cartoons are real life characters, not Juan de la Cruz or Uncle Sam. So usually presidents of the country. And they are portrayed like some kind of the humorous touch. Okay? So their heads may be large, extremely larger than their bodies. The prominent parts of their faces would be emphasized. Like for Duterte, maybe he has a large nose, or GMA has a large front teeth and a mole on the cheek. And Erap would have that big hair with the patilla. President Ramos would have a cigar on his mouth and a large balding forehead. So those are examples of real-life characters with large heads, small bodies in caricatures. Now, sometimes if the characters are quite difficult to figure out who they are, the cartoonist would put some tags or dialogue balloons for more clarity. Example, here we have a dialogue balloon, and Juan de la Cruz is saying, "Hi, pera." He has money problems. Typical Filipino has money problems. In a nutshell, that's what caricatures are. To give you an example, here is an 1898 or 1899 caricature which appeared in an American newspaper. Okay, in America. Try to figure out what they mean or what this means. What are the figures that you can see there? You can see the giant hand. Probably that's the first thing that you will notice. And the giant hand has a flag of America. So therefore, the giant hand symbolizes the American government. And what is the hand doing? As you can see, it's crushing somebody. And who is that somebody? You can figure that out also. The guy is wearing a general's uniform, a military uniform, and he has a flat top haircut. And who do you know has a flat top haircut? Yes, Emilio Aguinaldo. And you can see some tags. There's the word Philippines over here. And he's riding a toy horse which says dictatorship. So the government of Aguinaldo is a dictatorial government, and for the American eyes, his government is just a toy government, a toy horse. It's nothing, and they can easily crush Aguinaldo. So that is the meaning of that editorial cartoon. Clear? Okay, so now that's just a sampler. I will now show you 10 caricatures which appeared in newspapers during the American colonial period in the Philippines. So therefore, what you will see come from very, very old newspapers. You can see the date there also. I will show you the date. You can also see the name of the newspaper. And remember that what you will see is a reflection of the times. What the country was experiencing at that time is reflected in the caricatures. Here's number 1. Look at it carefully. Look at the people. And as you can see, at the bottom is the name of the newspaper, The Independent. That's the old La Independencia. And the date is November 27, 1915. Wow, this is more than 100 years old. And who are the people in the figure? Now, the guy there riding the chariot is Uncle Sam. And he's wearing a tall hat. That is how Uncle Sam looks like. He has a white beard. He wears a tuxedo also, and he's tall and slender. Now, who are the people pulling the chariot or the carriage? They are supposed, the ones who are supposed to pull the vehicle are horses. But instead of horses, we have people. And the people have something, a nose ring, okay, to pull the chariot for Uncle Sam. Now, who could be the people? Based on their physical appearance, you can say that this must be Filipinos, right? You're correct. So Filipinos, you can see them with their noses. Okay? They are pango. And what's something common? Their haircut. Okay? Their haircut has the hate in the middle. It's called the kimpi hairstyle, or others call it the kachupoy hairstyle. And that is the common hairstyle in 1915 in the American colonial period. Actually, it had its origin in the Spanish period. That is the hairstyle for smart people. Yes, you heard it right. If you're intelligent, you have a kimpi hairstyle in the old days. If you're not smart, you don't have that kind of hairstyle. You have the hate either left or right. But if you have it in the middle, you are intelligent. Why? Because that is the hairstyle of schoolboys. Yes, men who go to school, educated people. Remember that in those days, not everybody, especially in the Spanish times, not everybody can go to school. So the people who go to school have a hairstyle required by the school, and the people who don't go to school don't have that hairstyle, and that hairstyle is the kimpi hairstyle. Now, during the American colonial period, that hairstyle continued on as a required hairstyle in the universities. So if you're a college student, you have that hairstyle. Now, that means in this picture, or in this caricature, the ones pulling the chariot are, yes, university students. This is like a satire, a criticism, because it's something real that happened, that an American governor general visited a school in Intramuros. I won't mention the name of the school, but it is in Intramuros. It's still existing today. And the students, okay, the school officials, wanted to impress the American Governor General with their hospitality. So instead of touring the Governor General on a horse, on a carriage pulled by a horse, the students pulled it for him. Wow! Now many people did not like this act. It's an over hospitality action, and it's like they felt that we Filipinos were like blind animals who would blindly please their master. So the newspaper picked up that story and drew a caricature for that, criticizing us, the Filipino people, for being very hospitable, overly hospitable, to the point that we are like slaves to our American master. So that's how caricatures work. Okay, they make the readers think and hopefully change for the better. Alright, so the next caricature is this. It's kind of faint, but anyway, you can see clearly if you focus your eyes. And it's from the Philippine Free Press, May 10, 1919. Wow! More than 100 years ago. Can you figure out what's happening? So you see lots of people, and there are some tags on the buildings and on the shirt of the people, and some dialogue balloons. So you can see here, Precinto del Distrito Número 2. Okay, what could that be? Okay, a los precintos electorales. I know you can understand Spanish. How about this one? Viva nuestro candidato. It means long live our candidate. Okay? Precinto means precinct of district number 2. So this is an election. Yes. What's happening in the picture is an election, and you have here a tag which says politico. Okay? And leader. Okay? Tienda de refrescos. What does that mean? Store of refreshments. Okay? Meeting popular. Okay? So there is a meeting there. And as you can see, the election during that time was really festive and dirty. Can you see this? Somebody's whispering to a voter, okay, what to vote. Okay? And it's like the old days, no? Or it's like, the old days are like what's happening today. The elections are really festive and controversial. And it shows that also the Spanish language was very much alive in use during the American colonial period. Spanish was still used. You can see them in the signs. You can see them in the conversations. Somebody says lintik, which is a Spanish word for lightning. And so even though we are in the American period and the Americans taught us how to speak English, some habits are hard to break. 300 years of Spanish colonial era, we still speak Spanish in 1919. Okay, so the Spanish language was still alive. Okay, here's another one that is about elections. This is 1907. Okay, you can see the date there at the bottom from the newspaper, The Independent. I know you know this man with the pants of stripes. Yes, and tuxedo, tall hat, and a beard. That is Uncle Sam. And what is he doing? He is serving soup. To whom? So we see here a figure and everybody's in line. Okay, they are waiting for Uncle Sam to give them some soup. They have a mustache. They look like old people, but prominent in society. Okay, and how about the group here? They're watching in awe, or maybe they're telling or whispering to one another, "Sana all." And there's a dog underneath. So what could this mean? I told you it's about the elections because it says here, El turno de los partidos. And I know you can understand that. The turn of the parties or political parties. Okay? Because in the old times, in the American period, the Americans were very, very influential in our elections. So the Americans taught us democracy. They taught us how to vote. In the Spanish times, we don't do that. Okay? There's no democracy. And so the Filipinos learned how to campaign, how to give political speeches, how to get the hearts of the voters to vote for them. But a big, big X factor for a politician to win in those days is the blessing of America. If the American officials would endorse you and not your political opponent, that would be the knockout punch. You would win the election. And not only American verbal endorsement, but also financial support. Americans would give financial support to Filipino candidates whom they think would carry on their American colonial interests. So if you're a politician in that time, you would really, really try to get the endorsement of America. Similar to what is happening today. Our politicians are courting influential people like religious leaders, so that the religious leaders would endorse their candidacy among their flock. In the American colonial period, it's not the religious leaders, but it was the American leaders whom the politicians would like to befriend and get their nod for their endorsement. Some Filipinos, some people would just really wait under the table for some crumbs to fall on them, and they would be happy for that. So if you're a politician and you don't get the endorsement of the Americans, maybe you just try to get some crumbs in the aftermath of the elections, or during the campaign period, you get some crumbs. And then the opponents, they are like saying, sana all. Naiinggit sila. Okay? Because this guy and his party got the endorsement of Uncle Sam. Okay, so that is a reflection of the times. Here's another one, coming from 1937, the Philippine Free Press. And you know this character. He's a famous figure, and they even put a tag on his coat which says Quezon, President Quezon. And the message is quite obvious. He says, I support the women's suffrage movement. And then the lady says, Mabuhay. And then there are also some Spanish words here, Viva. Now, this is about what happened in 1937, that women, for the first time in the history of the Philippines, were given the right to vote. Suffrage means right to vote. It was a new idea during that time. Not because in the old days, only men can vote. If you notice the illustration a while ago about the festive election scenario, you can see only men. That was a 1919 caricature. Only men go to the precinct. But 1937, the women now have their chance to vote. And it's a big celebration for the Philippines in 1937. And the president really supported this to happen. Okay, that's Manuel Quezon, president of the Commonwealth Republic. Okay, Commonwealth means training period for independence. It's an American-sponsored republic or training for our self-rule. Okay, now number 5, from the Philippine Free Press, it says here immigration restriction law. And what's happening? It's like a barrier or a wall, but it's not solid. It's made of sawali. It's not stone. So therefore it is flimsy. And there's even a hole wherein some people were able to sneak in. Now some people are trying to hold the fort. What's this? Assembly. Okay, it says here assembly. And there are lots of people who would like to break the barrier and get in the Philippines. Okay, so what is this all about? Now I'll give you a clue. Assembly is the name of our Congress during the Commonwealth period. Okay, so these are our congressmen or senators, our lawmakers, Filipinos, being trained by the Americans in the colonial, in the Commonwealth government, how to run the republic, how to make laws. And it seems that they made a law that restricts the immigration of so many people. They don't want immigrants to come in the Philippines. Okay, they are preventing it. The Congress is preventing these people to come in. But it seems that they cannot do that task because they're so massive, and there are some people who are able to get in the Philippines. The story is this. Let's go back at the year 1940. What do you know about 1940? There's World War II in Europe, not yet in the Philippines. We had World War II here 1941. So 1940, World War II was raging on in Europe, and the villain there was Hitler, and he wanted to wipe out the Jews in Europe. The Jews started fleeing Europe, leaving Europe and trying to go elsewhere to escape the hands of Hitler. And at that time, our Commonwealth government, led by Manuel Quezon, opened the Philippines to Jewish immigrants. So Quezon said to the Jews, you are welcome to go to the Philippines. You want to escape Hitler? We will offer you a refuge here in the Philippines. Come on over here. And if you watch the movie Quezon's Game, I recommend that you watch it. You will see the full story there. Now, this action of Quezon had mixed reactions among the people, particularly the assembly or the Congress. They didn't like Quezon. Some congressmen didn't want people to come and rush to the Philippines. One of those who opposed Quezon, but he's not a member of the assembly, but he's a popular figure, he's Emilio Aguinaldo. He didn't like Quezon's idea of bringing the Jews here. And so they had a big debate, Aguinaldo versus Quezon. Aguinaldo is saying that why let the Jews here and have their own land in the Philippines, and you would want to take care of them. But there are many poor Filipinos who don't have land and who need to be taken care of by the government. But you are prioritizing foreigners. That's what Aguinaldo said to Quezon. This is 1940, after he got defeated by Quezon in the election of 1935. Another observation here is, as you can see, the title is English and Spanish. will it hold? Podrá contenerlo. Okay? You know what this means? I know what this means. It means, will it hold? Yes. Okay, so that's the meaning of this caricature, and we can see that the Spanish language was still alive during that time. Okay, number 6. It says here, take it easy. Mas calma. Mas calma means take it easy. Newspapers then were bilingual. You have one column. If you open this newspaper, one column would be English, the next column would be Spanish, but they will be talking about the same news. That's how they make newspapers then, in the colonial, American colonial period. Now, let's look at the caricature. We have here another Quezon figure. Okay, what is he doing? He's trying to prevent somebody to attack somebody. The guy in the middle has a tag, labor. And then this guy who is smoking and very relaxed says here, capital. So this is the capitalist and this is the laborer. And he's the factory owner and this is the factory worker. And we can see that already in that time there is a dispute between the laborers, the poor working class versus the rich upper class who own the businesses here in the Philippines. They seem to be carefree of the needs of the poor. And so they may have some labor disputes, okay? Some things that they demand to improve their status as laborers, but the capitalists wouldn't give. Now, the government, represented by Quezon, is on whose side? Yes, on the side of the capitalists, because they are preventing a labor attack, or what the labor sector would want to happen. They are preventing it in saying, mas calma, okay? Take it easy. So even in that time, we can see that the government is on the side of the rich. And as I've mentioned, yeah, it's bilingual. So now, let's go to number 7. We see almost the same arrangement of people. Somebody is preventing somebody to go after somebody. Now, who is this person running? A boy. What is he holding? Looks like a chicken. And who is this guy in the middle? What do you think is his job? He looks like a policeman. He has a batuta. So that's how policemen look like. That's how their uniforms look like in the American colonial period. This is 1917. Okay, so they would have that funny helmet and a batuta, and they're chasing after a boy who probably stole the chicken. And who is preventing the policeman from running after the boy? That is Juan de la Cruz, wearing that hat. Okay? And wearing the Barong Tagalog. Now, he seems to be pointing to the policeman to go instead to another direction, to that building. And what could that building be? Now, let's look at the interpretation. The boy represents small-time criminals. Okay? They steal little things like chickens for food because they're hungry. And the policemen try to go after them instead of going after big-time criminals. Because Juan de la Cruz is pointing to the policeman to go to that big building. Looks like a government building to me. And he's saying that there are more thieves there. There are people there that you need to arrest or to check. So he's saying to the policeman, you are just going after small-time criminals, but there are big-time criminals that you need to look after. And very similar also to our time. During the early days of the war on drugs, many criticize that why only the small-time pushers get arrested or killed. Alleged killers, they say, who wear slippers or even barefooted. But the drug lords, the big drug lords, don't get arrested. That is the situation now and also in 1917. Okay, so we're learning a lot. Okay, number 8. The car has a tag, colorum. And who's riding the colorum car? That's death or kamatayan. The guy here, you know what he is from the past caricature? Yes, he is a policeman. He's wearing that funny helmet and that funny uniform. Now, what is a colorum? A colorum is a car or a vehicle that is registered as a private vehicle, but the driver is using it for business, okay, for public transport, which is illegal, which is a no-no. Because if you want to use your car or your vehicle for business, for public transport, you must register it as a public transport vehicle. And you will have a plate number that is color yellow, not white. So in our time, that is the code. So if you notice, the buses and the jeepneys and the tricycles, they must have a yellow plate number. If not, they are colorum vehicles. Okay, so in our time, there are tricycles, jeepneys, UV Express, the white vans. They have a white plate number. They're not supposed to carry people for business. It's only for private use. And that practice has been going on way back, okay, in the American colonial period. When cars were invented and introduced in the Philippines, of course the Filipinos adopted it. They love what Americans introduce here. And some Filipinos are very enterprising. They use it for business, but they were colorum vehicles. So this newspaper is hitting or criticizing this practice of Filipinos of doing illegal business. And it's saying that it's dangerous because many people die because of colorum vehicles. There must be some accidents that happened or that were rampant during that time. You look at the title. It says here, Death Cars. In Spanish, Coches Mortales. Coche is car. Mortales sounds like mortality. What is the police doing with all these accidents, with all these colorum activities? The police is just shrugging his shoulders. Okay? Kibit balikat in Tagalog. He's turning a blind eye. He's not doing anything. That's what happened in the American colonial period. Taxis were existent, but many of them were colorum. The government or the writer or the artist who drew this caricature is concerned that this practice is rampant and he wants this to be corrected. So he drew a caricature which appeared in the Philippine Free Press. Okay, the next two are very interesting. Number 9. Okay, figure this out. We have a split screen. And the title, The Results of Co-Education. This happened in 1917. What is co-education or co-ed for short? Co-ed means boys and girls together in one class, together in one school. Now, what is the opposite of co-ed? Exclusive. So when you say that this school is an exclusive school, it means it's an all-boys school or an all-girls school. And you know some examples of all-boys and all-girls school. Maybe you come from one of such school. Now, in the Spanish times, okay, during the time of Rizal, the schools then were exclusive. Rizal never had a classmate a girl classmate. All his classmates were boys because the schools then were for boys only. He went to Ateneo, he went to UST. They were exclusive schools for boys. And girls have their own exclusive schools also. So the girls are together in one school, the boys in another school. But in 1917, the Americans came, okay, and now they are introducing what they do in America. Co-ed. They're not doing exclusive in America. And for the Filipinos, it was a shocker that the world is getting co-ed. And they don't want that to happen. The Filipino people were very, very apprehensive. They were afraid of many things that may happen once co-ed style would be implemented in the Philippines. Okay, they think it's evil. Look at this first screen here. Okay? Here's a teacher. And what's happening to the class? They are doing a lot of things that the people then were afraid of, like a boy and a girl classmate here. They're kissing. Te amo, which means I love you. And what's happening here also? He's courting her. One technique is you drop your book, and then you would put a love letter there, and then the girl would read the love letter, like what she's doing here now. She's reading the love letter. And who's listening to the teacher? Nobody's listening to the teacher. Only the ugly guy, ugly girl. So the pretty ones, okay, they get into a relationship. The ugly ones, they are the ones who listen to the teacher only. And they are saying here, okay, the Filipino people are saying here now, oh, it's gonna be the end of the world. Now, the second screen here is also very intriguing. What can you say? What can you see? We have a couple who's trying to ride a kalesa, which is a common public transport at that time. And it says here, to Pasay. Eh? Pone Bostrapal. Aba, mas que puelte el sol. What does that mean? Tocochero is saying, oh, it's tanghaling tapat, or it's middle of the day. Even in the middle of the day, they want to go to Pasay. It's 2 p.m. class hour, and there are many motels in Pasay. So these two are students, and they are going to the motel at 2 p.m. It's class hour. They have their books with them. They are cutting classes. And so the world, or the Filipino people, were really, really afraid of co-ed style of education. Amazing. So it's a radical idea, and they don't want unwanted courtship and class destruction. Okay, this is the last one for today. What can you see? This is from the Free Press, and it is in the cinema. So one thing that the Americans introduced also during the American colonial period is cinema. We don't have this during the Spanish times. And in the cinema, you know, there are some advertisements that they flash on the big screen before the actual movie. In our time, the advertisements would be the anti-piracy ads. Okay, don't record the movie, you'll get fined, you go to jail. Okay, you know that. Now, in the American colonial period, the warnings were about this: no necking or lovemaking allowed in this theater. And this is the policeman, okay, with that funny helmet. And the teenagers here were shocked to see that warning. And we have some old people here laughing at the young people. And the title is Our Flaming Youth. Nuestra ardiente juventud. So you can see that the necking and petting were existent in cinemas back then. These mischievous acts that young people do in the cinema because it's dark, you know. So this could be your grandfather or grandmother or great grandmother actually. You can, if they're still alive, you can ask them, Lola, do you go to the cinema with Lolo? What do you do there? So in the American colonial period, yeah, it's happening already. Alright, so now let's go to the synthesis. I have just 5 points here. What can we analyze from all those caricatures? We have seen that the character Juan de la Cruz was created during the American colonial period, and he's still alive up to now, a representation of the Filipino people. Number 2, we can see that change is coming. That's the theme of many caricatures during that time. Changes in society were very common back then. The Filipinos were shocked and unprepared, like co-ed, okay? Women suffrage. These are new ideas for them. And the change has indeed come in their time. And that's how they handled the change. They used art, they used caricatures to express what they feel about the coming change. Number 3, we can see some issues then and now. There were many things that were happening back then that still happen today, like colorum taxis, petting in cinemas, police going after small-time criminals and not the big-time criminals. We see the conflict of laborers and capitalists. We see festive and fraudulent elections, and we see extreme colonial mentality. Okay, like the people wanting the American blessing on their candidacy. Okay, and then we also see the students pulling the chariot for the American Governor General. We have extreme colonial mentality back then, and we still have it today. And all these issues listed, they are still around. Okay, number 4, we can see that the Spanish language was very much alive back then. Don't you know that Spanish was a required subject in college? Yes, 12 units. That means 4 semesters you study the Spanish language. That was the time of my father and my mother. They have Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4. And it just got taken away in the late 1980s. Anyway, so when I entered college, it's no longer a required subject. But how I wish it's still a required subject, because I feel that Spanish is very common still in the world. 1/3 of the world speaks Spanish, and if you're going to work in an international workplace, you might meet people from the Spanish-speaking world, and so your Spanish can be very handy. And also for me as a historian, I really love to know the Spanish language, because many primary sources are written in the Spanish language. But today, it's a dead language. We don't study it anymore formally in schools. And number 5, we can see that press freedom was evident. With all these caricatures, you can see that the Filipinos have learned what the Americans do. They can criticize their government, they can criticize their own people through the media, through caricatures, and you don't go to jail. Okay? You see there's some criticisms about Quezon, criticisms about the Filipino culture, and it's very open. Okay? Some people would express that, but good sport lang. Press freedom, that's what the Americans taught us. Alright? So, there we have it. We now go to the activity. This will be done in Blackboard. And there's a question there, a couple of questions that you need to answer directly on Blackboard. And the question is this. Excuse me. In your opinion, what are 3 good things the Americans contributed in our culture? Okay? Based on what you know, what you gathered from the caricatures. And write the reasons why you say they are good. Okay? And then number 2, in your opinion, what are 2, okay, bad things the Americans contributed in our culture? Okay? And then write the reasons why you say they are bad. So 3 good things, 2 bad things. Total 5. Plus the reasons. Okay? No reason, you don't get some points. So you have to explain why you think that is a good thing the Americans contributed to our culture.
In addition, draw your own editorial cartoon or caricature depicting a current social or political issue you are facing these days, like COVID and online classes. These are just examples. You can have your own topic that you like. Follow the rules on how to make a caricature as mentioned in the beginning of this video lecture, like drawing a person with a large head, or the use of tags, etc. Not following rules, no points will be rewarded. Draw it on paper, your caricature, using a ball pen, not a pencil. Then take a picture of the drawing and attach the picture on the discussion board. Then write a 1-paragraph explanation of your drawing. I hope the instructions are clear.
Okay, so that's all for today. I hope you learned a lot from our analysis of the American colonial period based on caricatures done in that time. This is Sir Jet saying goodbye and thank you.